The desperate last 2 days of pregnant teen killer on death row. Arthur Brown was born August 14, 1970 in Los Angeles and lived a poor upbringing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with segregated neighborhoods where his father severely mistreated his mother physically and emotionally, something no child should witness firsthand. Rachel Tovar and Jose Tovar were drug dealers based out of Houston, Texas, who sold marijuana and cocaine to other dealers like Tuscaloosa resident James Brown's associates from Tuscaloosa on June 19, 1992. These associates included Marion Dudley, Antonio Dunson, and Maliak Travis, who arrived with Brown the morning of June 20th at his sister Grace's Houston residence. At first, 3 criminals arrived to purchase 3 kilograms of cocaine at this residence when they decided to rob 6 individuals inside, using force against them before shooting 6 of them dead before police could arrive. By then, 3 victims had died: Jose Tovar, Jessica Quinones, 7 months pregnant, Frank Farias. Of those 3 survivors, 1 later passed away due to injuries. Among these survivors, 1 named Audrey Brown as her attacker, while Marion Dudley, Arthur Brown Jr., and Tony Dunson had identified themselves as their aggressors. After the murders were carried out, when it became known that they were police suspects, they apparently fled from Birmingham, Alabama to Louisville, Kentucky, where they purchased plane tickets under false identities, before driving the Jeep Cherokee north from Columbus, before eventually abandoning it altogether. On July 8, 1992, Dudley and Dunson were arrested at their mobile home in Fayetteville, North Carolina, while on October 23rd, they were apprehended at an apartment complex located near Northport, Alabama, by members of Tuscaloosa County Metro Homicide Unit. Trial and tribulations. At trial, 3 of Brown's sisters, Cerisa Ann Brown, Grace Brown, and Carolyn Momo, gave state testimony during the guilt-innocence phase. All 3 claimed police and prosecutors threatened them to coerce cooperation. Carolyn Momo was even held in contempt at one point for invoking her Fifth Amendment right despite having immunity provided. Eventually, when she testified, she was found guilty of perjury. Conviction and sentencing. A jury in 1993 found Brown guilty of capital murder. On November 3rd, he was given a death sentence. Marion Butler Dudley followed Brown into being found guilty, receiving his capital murder verdict on January 23rd, 1995 as well. Antonio Limon Dunson received life without parole sentencing upon conviction in May 2022, but is eligible for release July 8, 2027. Dudley was executed by lethal injection on January 25, 2006 in Huntsville, Texas, becoming the inaugural person executed under Texas state law during 2006. Dudley refused to walk to his execution chamber himself and had to be carried. When asked by warden if there was anything further to say for or against himself, he simply kept silent with his eyes shut, taking this as an indicator to administer drugs at 6 p.m. that evening as per court procedure, and 8 minutes later at 6:16 p.m., Dudley had died peacefully, proclaiming his innocence up until his last breath had left his body. Until that very momentous day when his execution had taken place and 8 minutes after 6:16 p.m. had come around, he denied ever being present when any shooting incident had taken place at home where this had taken place. Arthur Brown has been struggling. Arthur Brown has unsuccessfully appealed his conviction. Most recently, in August 2014, he lost an appeal before the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals when his request to use $7,500 towards hiring a mitigation specialist for assistance was turned down in court by both lower and higher levels. Brown lost yet another appeal when the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals denied him another trial or sentencing phase in October 2017, at which point state prosecutors claimed Arthur Brown Jr. could have been sentenced to death upon 3rd attempt. If all his appeals had been exhausted in May 2022, then Brown's death warrant should have been signed off upon by an order from the 351st District Court judge in Texas. Prosecutors and defense attorneys attempted to influence a Harris County judge regarding Brown's death warrant. Prosecutors sought an August 31st execution date for him, while Brown's legal representation claimed he suffered from intellectual disability that made him ineligible for execution. On May 20th, however, the judge declined signing it due to family member outrage at her refusal of signing it for Brown, and their subsequent anger about its signing was further expressed when her release caused great distress among their loved ones. Following the verdict, Harris County District Attorney's prosecutor announced they would appeal Judge Ogun's ruling via Court of Appeals. Brown had his execution set for March 9, 2023, without court intervention. Gary Green would follow shortly afterwards, with Arthur Brown following 2 days later. Since his entrance on death row 3 decades ago, Brown has lived quietly without making waves of violence among either fellow prisoners or authorities. Anthony Graves, former death row inmate exonerated in 2010, who riveted attendees during remarks remarks at Texas Coalition to Abolish Death Penalty annual meeting and now supporting Brown as advocate, recently asked Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles to reduce Brown's sentence from death penalty to life without parole. On March 1, 2023, Brown's attorneys filed their latest appeal to stop his execution on grounds that his conviction was obtained with false evidence and that exculpatory evidence showing other parties as the murderers was withheld from them by their district attorney. Although Brown may have received temporary reprieve from death row executioner's noose for now, his execution remains as an ever-present threat like Damocles' sword of Damocles. Opposition to Brown's conviction. Many still believe Arthur Brown Jr. to have been wrongfully convicted. Opposition claims his conviction was obtained using falsified evidence, with new attorneys alleging the district attorney suppressing exculpatory material indicating other individuals perpetrated the murders. Mr. Brown shows signs of intellectual impairments, including possible fetal alcohol disorder impairments that made him even more liable to this wrongful conviction.